Every leadership team wants alignment. Of course they do. Very few want the discomfort that comes with trying to achieve it. So when executives hear about RevOps for clients, one of the first reactions is, this discipline sounds like a lot of meetings, more process, more overhead. But what if the opposite is true? What if RevOps for clients doesn't slow the business down, but slows bad decisions down? Hi, I'm Courtney Baker, and this is AI Knowhow from Knownwell, helping you reimagine your business in the AI era. As always, I'm joined by Knownwell CEO David DeWolf, Chief Product and Technology Officer Mohan Rao, and Nordlight CEO Pete Buer. We also have a discussion with Alyssa Nolte of Ology and TrueView about AI's role in CX and customer success. But first, Pete Buer joins me to break down the business impact of some of the latest AI news. Hey, Pete, how are you?
I'm good, Courtney. How are you?
I'm great. Pete, IBM just did something fascinating and a little bit ironic. They built an internal AI platform that made their consultants 50% more productive. And now they're packaging it up and selling it to clients as IBM Enterprise Advantage. So instead of selling more consulting hours, they're selling the thing that eliminates the need for consulting hours. So, Pete, what's your read on this?
So this IBM Enterprise Advantage platform, they call it an asset-based consulting service. Good word salad to obfuscate what's going on. Began life as IBM's Consulting Advantage platform, which was an internal AI platform rolled out back in January of 2024. They've used the platform in more than 150 client engagements, so you can imagine the content wrapped up in the platform at this stage of the game. They boosted consultant productivity by up to 50%, and they generated a reported $35 million in efficiency gains for the business. Now they're going to give clients access to this same platform and the tools and agents that are part of it and that they've been using internally. I see two magical things going on here. First, IBM is taking what had been for them an internal cost center, and they're turning it into a value-creating, revenue-generating business line, or at least product within the business line. And second, they're doing the thing that we refer to all the time as productizing services, turning valuable tasks previously delivered by humans into tech-delivered client-facing capabilities. I love it. And it's not just for how it represents cool business school concepts, though I always love seeing that in nature whenever it appears. It feels like the approach is giving IBM a concrete selling advantage. So we've transformed our massive business with AI, and let us help you do the same thing, right? There's street cred in being able to make that statement. And oh, by the way, we've got an ROI case study where we save $35 million in doing so. While it's not transparent yet in the research, I have to imagine this offer gives them an economic advantage as well. You got to believe their internal efficiency gains are going to cascade into pricing benefits for customers, now augmented by a nice recurring revenue stream from the platform as they sell it. And even better, and the article didn't reference this, but I think this is a way to solve another problem of the lumpiness of revenue within consulting services. You now have a continuing engagement excuse, to stay in touch with and keep warm the folks who buy services from you across time in between your major gigs. So, final thought. We're seeing lots of examples right now, the different ways the rules of consulting and services businesses are being rewritten by AI. I think the takeaway for leaders is something that we've been saying for some time now. Take a good, hard look at all the different ways AI can transform your model now before the competition beats you to the punch.
Mm-hmm. Pete, this is so interesting. And I do think there's some really, I love when you see examples of businesses making the hard decision to get rid of the thing that's good for hopefully something that's great or better, produces more outcomes for the business. But I will say, Pete, just curious, are we actually impressed by this $35 million that it produced? Because I have calculated it. IBM, $62 billion company. That is 0.05%. And so if you're out there looking for that type of ROI, this seems to be a great product for you. If you would like to see more than that, maybe it's not the best consultant. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, any good skeptic who's buying services questions the business case, and so I admire your attack. And I don't have the receipts to back up how they got to the numbers, so that would be a fun one to go deep with IBM on.
Well, Pete, thank you as always.
Thank you, Courtney.
You can probably imagine what RevOps for clients looks like when it's not working. But what does it look like when it is? Put on these rose-colored glasses and headphones and check out this roundtable discussion with David and Mohan. David, Mohan, when we talk about commercial operations or RevOps for clients, one of the biggest fears we hear sounds like a lot of meetings or overhead. So today I want to talk honestly about what actually changes and what the discipline looks like when it's working well, when you have a highly functional, best-in-class commercial operation. So
Yeah, well, I mean, let me just start by saying if all you're going to do is add meetings, then it is just overhead.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it's important. A lot of organizations have meeting bloat. There's probably a lot of meetings you can take out. I'm guessing there are already staff meetings for the account management team. There's probably cross-functional meetings regarding certain clients. I think the better question is, what are you doing in those meetings? And are they productive and are they driving performance? Or are they kind of how a lot of meetings are, a waste of time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, the point is rigor and discipline and using a meeting cadence to do that. Take the weekly triage as an example. I think you can do that in a 30-minute meeting, right? 30 minutes a week of pulling the relevant people together to triage and to figure out what are the most important things for us to work on this week and how we're going to allocate resources to turn these clients around, to actually move these clients, move the needle on them, right? If you just get started with that alone, I think you'll be shocked by the amount of clarity your team has in execution and how it actually drives efficiency, how it drives effectiveness. Because I think the bigger problem in organizations is they have meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings, but there's no rigor, there's no discipline, there's no data that drives it.
Yeah.
And people don't actually have clarity on what's important.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What are we actually doing? How should we allocate resources? And so people arm wrestle over the resources and have different perspectives and different opinions, and there's no data to guide the decision, and it just becomes a mess.
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe the answer to that question is challenge your status quo. Yeah, eliminate 2 meetings for everyone that you institute. But my suggestion is you find room for the 30-minute triage and then the monthly portfolio walk, right?
Yeah.
Go through every account on a monthly basis, look at their scores, but every week look at the big movers.
Well, and the reality is you probably, when you're not ahead and you're playing reactive, it doesn't even look like you're having meetings, but you're having day of this. We have an escalation. We got to get on the phone right now.
Totally. The reactive mode that you're in is consuming tons of your time. Tons of it, for sure.
Now, first of all, hopefully, RevOps does not slow the business down, but it's really slowing the bad decisions down, right? So that's sort of the main thing to look at. I think the framing of this episode is if somebody out there is saying, hey, there's a methodology for RevOps, and I'm going to implement everything, all 3 phases together, yes, that can feel really heavy and you can get stuck. As David said, you can start with a minimum Viable Cadence, MVC, right? So, and say, here are the basic things that I need, right? And then you can say, imperfect data initially is more a feature and not a bug because now you're talking data at least, So early on, consistency is going to beat completeness, right? You got to get going. You got to get going. And before you add more complexity, if you try to bring in all 5 stages of the methodology in, of course, it'll slow you down, but you got to get going. It's just like what anything ever gets done. Hopefully, AI is a force multiplier that helps you do all of the work and just collect the data, organize it for you. So it makes it easy. That's hopefully taken away some of the work. And just sort of understanding like a good view of system design as opposed to a tool sprawl. Right. So most people have some kind of CRM and dashboards and email and just be able to think of it more as a system through which you collect data and not think of it as I have 10 different tools and I go to 10 different tools to do different things. That can slow you down. So just kind of thinking about all of this is really, really, really important. But the most important thing is just getting started and the conversations that happen to reconcile between various functional areas is the most important thing.
So many good points that you said there. The one I want to highlight a couple because they just really scream out to me. The first one is this idea of brevity and focus of the meeting and how you can have one 30-minute meeting that replaces 3 different hour-long emergency meetings that nobody was prepared for, right? That is like a yes, so true. The second one you said that really struck out to me was just getting started with the data, not looking for perfect data. Here's a secret that I learned long ago because you never have perfect data. The only way data gets better is if you expose it. Put it in the open air, put it in front of people, make them look at it every single week, make them deal with the fact that it's dirty and not right and say it publicly because you put it in front of them and say, why did the score dip to X? Oh, that's not right because of the, well, then why are we showing up with it not right? Like, let's fix it. That's how you actually fix and clean up your data, right? So I love that point. It has always worked for me. Start using the dirty data. I think that's so important. And then the third thing that you made me think of wasn't something you said, but it just got my mind turning on what are the other things people actually are afraid of in this. And I think one of the things when you start looking at data and you're starting to drive discipline and rigor and accountability is really what we're talking about. I think people can have the excuse of micromanagement and the blame game and those types of things. And I think it's really important. We all know the studies in psychological safety and all these things, but it's got to be we as an organization are trying to improve performance. The only way we can improve performance is if we start talking about performance. And the point here is not for a single person to be called out. There's no one person that's responsible for the health of a client. And this is one of the fundamental problems with account management, customer success, all these things is they don't have control over everything. They're really a facilitator of a lot of things and pulling it all together, yet they hold the accountability, right? It's almost unfair. It's really a cross-functional thing. And we've got to be at a point where we can be open and honest with each other and have trust-filled conversations, where we can debate the issues openly and honestly and as though people are trying to get to the bottom of the problem and not just blame each other. And then we've got to be able to make commitments together of what we're going to do to turn them around. And if we can do that, if we can go through that process, and by the way, those are the 3 bottom rungs of Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, right? Like trust-filled conversations, vigorous debate and conflict, right? Leading to commitment, right? Making decisions together. This is what we are going to do. Then you can hold each other accountable, right? Because you have that trust-filled relationship and that accountability always leads to results. And so the leadership mandate here is for you to take the sting of accountability out, for you to take the sting of blame game out, for you to say, no, it's not about that. It's actually about us holding each other accountable, holding me accountable, right? As the CEO, I should be participating in the health of our client portfolio and helping with these accounts. What does the executive sponsor program looks like? It's just as much about empowering the account manager to hold me accountable for doing my job of that as it is the other way around. The bottom line is we all have to make this better together. And the only way we do it is by talking about it and assessing what's real.
Yeah. Remember Courtney and David, early on, we had read a book together. This was the Ford book,
Yes.
Alan Mullally's with Thursday
Yes.
meetings, right? That was a really good template, right? And this is a newer version of that we're talking about with red, yellow, green. But more than that is fostering joint accountability through shared problem solving, and that's how you transform companies, right? So it just reminded me of that book that
Yeah.
we'd all read some time back.
Totally. Yeah, and Alan, I think American Icon
Yes.
is the name of it. It's the story of how he turned around Ford. It's phenomenal. You're right. And one of the things there was he actually held people more accountable for showing up with bad data that was just trying to look good than he did for the people that were actually he was like, that's red. That's awesome. Right? Something because when he first got there, everything was always green, yet the company was tanking. He's like, how
Yeah.
can this be true? And then all of a sudden, one person was brave enough to say, this area of my business is red, and he stood up and applauded, right? That's how you turn around that culture, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that happens in client success all the time where people are, afraid to be transparent with what's actually happening, and they're kind of creating a narrative around the situation, which is why it's so critical that this commercial operations has to move from gut or personal perceptions of relationship health to actually data driven so that you can just objectively look at what's happening, see that it's red, and then say, because we all know it's more than just hopefully one-to-one relationship that is causing that relationship, that client to be red, and it takes the whole team to
Just
turn that back to green.
let's break it down of all the people involved, right? To actually do a great job, right? Customer success, account management obviously has a job to do, right? But they are very dependent on the product organization or the service delivery organization, right? Sales has an incredible role to play, right? They have a
Mhm.
relationship that they brought to the table, right? There's executive sponsors that have to be involved. There are invoices and bills that have to go out without a flaw that cause major disruption when they're wrong,
Mhm.
right? Like we could go on and on and on, and all of those things, the account manager doesn't control any of them. Right? They're just this influencer that sits in the swivel chair in the middle and takes bullets all day,
Right.
right? Like, how hard is that job, right? And so have a little bit of empathy for that person and let's empower them and rally the organization to actually fulfill the mandate with them.
Yeah. Well, and even the things that you mentioned were all things that were controllable. There's also uncontrollable
So true.
things that are impacting that relationship as well.
The executive sponsor on the other side leaves, right? And all of a
Mhm.
sudden your budget holder changes and somebody comes in with a mandate to turn things around, right?
Right.
We could go on and on, right? The company goes through a budgeting crisis or, the CEO changes out and the whole strategy of the firm shift. Like the macroeconomics change and how do you get through bumpy times in the economy, right? All of those things.
Yeah. Well, I love that so much of just building the kind of culture that can handle this kind of transformation from gut feel to being data driven. It's really kind of it is the foundation of how you keep moving, how you don't slow down the organization. Because without it, it does become a lot of resistance, a lot of blame game, all the things that you see in a toxic culture. So I love that that's kind of the foundation for having a best in class commercial operations is having a great, healthy organization. David, Mohan, that closes out this episode. Next episode, we're going to be talking about what feels different when RevOps for clients is embedded in your organization. Thank you as always.
I'll start thinking now.
If you are just listening to our discussion and thinking, we need this kind of discipline in my company, well, you're not alone. Be sure to join our upcoming webinar on RevOps for clients later this month. We'll be talking through more practical ways you can extend the discipline of RevOps through the entire customer lifecycle. You can register to join us at knownwell.com/RevOps. Alyssa Nolte is a partner at Ology, the founder of TrueView, and the host of 2 podcasts, Taking Black Monday and The Growth Signal. Each episode of The Growth Signal features honest, unscripted conversations with leaders in sales, customer success, marketing, and growth. And we're excited that our very own David DeWolf will be appearing on Alyssa's podcast soon. I was excited to get the chance to talk with Alyssa recently about the real impact of AI on CX and much more.
Alyssa, it is great to have you on AI Knowhow. Thanks so much for joining us.
I am so thrilled to be here. I've really been looking forward to this conversation for a very long time.
Likewise. So I want to go ahead and jump right into it and talk about your work at TrueView Centers on predictive analytics. How do you see AI transforming the future of customer experience and retention over the next 5 years? No easy question to start with, Alyssa.
We're going to go ahead and solve the world's universal problems
Let's
right
do
now.
it. Yeah.
From my perspective, it feels like we are on a precipice moment, right? The same way that the internet revolutionized the way that we do business, I feel like we are in that moment with AI. All of the data, the information, the things that you needed to know about your customer experience have always been inside of your company. You have analytics and research and tribal knowledge and the way that we feel about our customers and the things that we've learned working in these roles for the last 10, 20, 30 years. It's always been there. But because of the sheer volume of everything that has to be unlocked and the ways that it has to connect across all of our silos, we've never been able to tap into it. And I feel like we are at this great moment where we are going to be able to tap into these things because AI can do the heavy lifting, the grunt work, the difficult, tedious process to unearth the things that we already have.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I want to jump to the flip side of that coin because I think what you said is so true. And yet, as we have these new technologies, it seems like we're kind of running into the roadblock of the change management, the operationalizing these new technologies inside of, from my point of view, professional services, certainly probably more than that too. But I'm curious if you would speak to that because it's like, yes, we have it. Now, how do we get people to actually use that knowledge that we now have access to?
I think the most important thing is that we have to go back to the fundamentals. With every new innovation and thing that we bring into our world, you have to make sure that you have a solid foundation of those fundamentals. The example that I use, my husband's a big Kobe Bryant fan. And so I know way more about Kobe Bryant than someone who really doesn't care about basketball does. But one of the things that when you look into his life and his approach to basketball, he would pick something for a season. So let's say last season, his free throw percentage was the worst of his stat line. That would be his entire focus for the season going forward. And not just making more free throws, but going back to the fundamentals of what does it take to be a great ball player, right? His dribbling, his shooting, his jump shot, whatever it was, there would be something that he would relentlessly focus on. And it was always a fundamental, not necessarily the big showy thing of, making 100 points in a game. And I think that that is something that we all have to look to when we're implementing these new technologies. Because I said in my first answer, everything is already inside your business. The problem is that because of years of bad behavior, bad management, sloppy data, policy, we have all of this stuff inside of our company, and it is locked behind process and structure and format. And so if we're willing to do the unsexy, tedious work of going in and fixing those underlying fundamental systems, we will surge ahead. But we have to do the unsexy, tedious, boring work in order to make it worth it.
Yeah, I'm so curious. I mean, you have so much experience in this realm. is there like a specific fundamental that you would suggest for companies? Like, hey, if I was just picking, obviously you're an outsider and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but hey, I would look at, in basketball, like free throw, you name some of those foundational things, but are there certain things that you see more often that you're like, hey, you might want to look at X? Is there something that you could share just to get people thinking?
I'm going to give the most standard unsatisfying answer here. It really depends. But I'm going to follow that up with how I decide what your focus should be, right? So for Kobe, he was looking at that stat line. Okay, my worst stat of my stat line last year was free throw. So I'm going to do that. I always tell businesses we have to find the pieces of data or the elements that fit some specific criteria. That criteria is that we have to ask ourselves, can we access this data? And that seems like a really stupid thing to be like, can we access it? But the number of times that I've gone into enterprise organizations and certain parts of that data is so either locked down or it's one guy with one key to the kingdom and everything's going to have to go through him in order to make that happen. That's not super accessible. So can we access it? The next question is always, will it have an impact on our business? Because a lot of times people like to collect data, present metrics, present information simply for the sake of the activity and not the actual use of how am I going to do something with this. So can I get it? What will I do with it if I do? And then the third question that's kind of the tiebreaker on where you should focus is, can I automate this? Can I automate the extraction and transfer of this information into whatever system or solution that I'm doing? Or am I going to create a brand new messy process that's going to require a real human being to go in and do A and B and C? And we all know how that's going to work. It never will. So if I can't get it, I can't do it. If I can't use it, I shouldn't have it. And if I can't automate it, I should have a real serious question of, is there something else out there that's a lower lift and higher impact that I can do that will really make a difference to my overall business?
That's great. Really great advice. I also, with that analogy of what Colby was doing, of kind of picking his worst thing, but it was always a foundation. It seems like in a way, he's really focusing on foundations, but also like gamifying it for himself so that it is actually enjoyable. So it's like you took something that you actually weren't very good at, which isn't always fun to work on, the things that you're doing poorly, and something foundational, which again, not the sexiest problem to go solve, but doing it in a way that actually does make it fun and engaging if you do it right.
I think you have the exact right word there. It has to have some kind of gamification or real human thought process and the psychology behind how we experience technology. There's an entire degree out there called human-computer interaction, in which you study the psychology of how human beings engage with the world around us, particularly computers. These things that we carry in our pockets and have conversations on right now, they are not going away, and technology is not going away. But people are also not going away. So we have to design systems that really take into account what is going to motivate an actual real human being beyond just a mandate of you will do it the way I want you to do it. How do we create an experience that feels easy and delightful and something that we actually want to do because we are much more likely then to actually do it?
Yeah. Well, speaking of systems, I want to jump into another type of system that you talk about. On previous podcasts, you've talked about the importance of a full customer lifecycle focus. And I would love for you just to kind of talk about what that is, what you mean by that, and then how does AI enable that full lifecycle visibility?
Yeah. I think if you've ever worked in a company, no matter how big or small, you have your salesperson who goes into a meeting and sells whatever they can sell because that's their job. And like I've done it too. I've sold things. I've literally walked out of my office to my research partner and I said, so I just invented this thing on this call. You have to figure out how to make it happen now. And we were a team of like 4 people. So imagine how much that's happening on a larger scale for enterprise companies. And the problem comes in with our life cycle is when we think of I am sales, so therefore I don't really care after the contract closes. And if someone says, okay, I'm delivery or I'm product, so I don't really care what happens until it gets to my plate, or worse, sales ruins everything and they're upstream from me and I end up with all of their stuff down the line. And I'm so frustrated by that. And then it creates this environment internally that the customer feels. And whether they can name it or not, when they feel that disconnect, when they flow from I'm a prospect to I'm a customer to I'm being onboarded to I'm past onboarding and now I'm expected to exist on my own to I'm being asked to renew. This is a circle that never ends, hopefully, if you're doing things right. And if you are creating an environment where that circle feels like it's just a series of separate lines that I have to jump to versus a smooth process, the customer is going to feel it, whether or not they can put a name to it, whether or not they actually recognize that that's what they're feeling. And so AI presents this great opportunity for us to say, I am no longer going to have a roadmap or a journey map, right? But rather we can reimagine our customer's journey as like a wheel that has spokes with AI sitting at the center. No start, no end. We're focused on where is the customer at in their journey and how does it connect, even if it's not linear, even if it doesn't make sense. And with AI sitting at the center of that, we have a conductor or an orchestrator who we can all go through and connect with, who can see that big picture and give us that real-time information we need to be successful. But back to your earlier question, requires all the humans involved to play ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, you do have to have everybody playing ball. And certainly, as we have talked earlier about operationalizing, sometimes it's harder. I mean, we've seen the data is showing it is harder to operationalize these AI tools than I think many of us thought it would be this far into the game.
As much as we want it to be magic in a box, it is not, right? It is code and science and human psychology and process. And I would love to wave a magic wand and have everyone's job is taken by AI. We all live on the beach and have the best time doing whatever we want to do. But that is not the reality we are living in or will probably live in very soon.
Thanks as always for listening and watching. Don't forget to give us a rating on your podcast player of choice or wherever you're watching this. And we'd really appreciate it if you would share this episode with someone that you know would enjoy it. At the end of every episode, we like to ask one of our AI friends to weigh in on the topic at hand. So, hey, Gemini, you're our new favorite, by the way. I don't know who knew that, but you are. Today, we're talking about embedding RevOps for clients without slowing the business down. What are your thoughts?
The trick is to treat RevOps like a GPS that helps them navigate faster, rather than a stop sign that forces a process audit. If you start by smoothing out the immediate friction points in their current workflow, you'll build momentum without making the team feel bottlenecked.
And now you're in the know. Thanks as always for listening. We'll see you next week with more AI applications, discussions, and part 2 of our interview with Alyssa Nolte. Hey, if you made it this far in the episode, first of all, thank you. And second, we know that AI is changing all the time. And so we've got you covered. Here is another great episode for you to watch to stay in the loop on what's happening in AI and business. And second of all, we'd love for you to subscribe. You can do that right here. I've always wanted to do that, by the way. So do that now. That would be great.